the biggest thing I think we saw in those calves is they were responding kind of on the first treatment, and we weren't having to retreat those calves. It seemed like recovery increased, maybe as much as 48 hours. A calf that typically took us about 72 hours to turn around, we were turning them around in 24 to 36 hours. So I just kind of felt like that in itself was worth the change. And it just seemed the quicker we could get that calf recovered and back on mom, we weren't giving up lost pounds. And, all of us, we try to make every day a good day for those calves. So that was really important.
Hi, welcome to the Beef Podcast Show. I'm Dr. AJ Tarpoff, and this podcast is dedicated to bring the latest insights and discussions from the utmost experts within the beef industry. So get ready to expand your knowledge, and once again, stay focused on this episode and listen in and be connected with us online. So today we've got a great lineup today. I'd like to introduce Kevin Thibault. So Kevin is a third-generation rancher, and he's going to talk a little bit more about his history. But he is a partner at Gem State Angus Ranch, and he is that third-generation Angus seedstock producer, and he currently manages the day-to-day operations. Now, that's a very small intro to you, but I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, talk about your operation, talk about how you guys became who you are today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, AJ, and good morning from Idaho. So as you mentioned, our operation is called Gem State Angus Ranch, and it was founded in 1989 by my dad, Kent Thibault. At the time, he was interested in getting into the seed stock business. We ran commercial cattle, and my grandpa and dad kind of dabbled in commercial cows all along. Prior to that, my granddad was a dairyman back in the 50s up into the mid 70s, and then kind of switched over to just crossbred beef cows. And anyway, we got started in 1989 with some embryos that were purchased from Nelson Angus Ranch here in Idaho. At the time, they would have been one of the premier breeders in the business, and they have a really strong reputation and family operation. And so dad sourced our first genetics there. Kind of rolling down the timeline in the 90s, we continued to grow that cow herd, running upwards of, anywhere from 45 to 50 head of registered cows. And my granddad and dad were also row crop farmers. So a pretty diverse operation. We grew potatoes, corn, alfalfa, barley, and then ran cows too. I got my first involvement of actually ownership came at the age of 9. I was able to pick out of a set of embryo heifers, and the one that didn't want to kill me for the 4-H project is the one that became my first cow. And so I did that for a year, and I kind of decided that maybe the show ring wasn't for me. I just like the cow-calf and maybe kind of the cowboy side of it a little bit better.
Is stress affecting your bottom line? Even routine handling, inclement weather, weaning, and dietary changes can significantly lower the rumen pH, causing cortisol levels to spike. Cortisol not only compromises the immune system, but also suppresses normal appetite and feed consumption. The solution? Cattle Active. Increase production and reduce the impacts of stress on your cattle for cents a day. Cattle Active restores the balance naturally. Want to learn more how a feeding program including Cattle Active can improve both profits and herd health? Visit us today at proearthanimalhealth.com. Be proactive with Cattle Active.
Not many people make that full transition from commercial to seed stock, and it sounds like you guys did it over time. I mean, were you continually, were your dad and your grandpa continually doing embryos this whole time as you were building kind of your purebred females?
Yeah, they would dabble in it. They dabbled in it. I don't know that it was every calf crop, but on given years, like I said, he started in '89 with those ET calves, and the heifers that I had to pick out of, that would have been the 1993 calf crop. So I know we did it up to that point. As we started to grow, there was a dispersal. I believe it was in 1997. There was a dispersal here locally. And at that point, my granddad decided to retire from row crop farming. And as a retirement, he bought, I think it was like 28 head of registered females. And he decided to kind of go out full on in the registered deal. I think what he really had a vision for opportunity in the ag sector. And at that time, he had a lot of connections to these farmers, and a lot of them were farmers, but they also ran commercial beef cows. And he decided that he wanted to go ahead and get in the seed stock business at a scale that would allow him to sell bulls to those guys. So at that point, so that would have been 97 or 98, we started using AI extensively to where our cow herd was growing. We were kind of, I wouldn't say we were pushing the envelope as far as genetics, but we tended to use those proven sires that really, kind of kept us out of the ditches, and sourced our genetics out of Montana primarily at the time, and kind of built the foundation of the cow herd that I manage today. As time went on, we built that registered cow herd. I think in the whole family, I think we had around 300 mother cows, and we're selling bulls, private treaty, and both yearlings and 2-year-olds, and then some select females. I moved away for college and was gone for my education and my wife's education. We were gone for about 15 years, and then I moved home in 2018. And obviously, like most operations, we kind of went through some transitional times, and we are running about 150 registered cows now, and looking to expand in the commercial sector a little bit more, utilize those cows as recips. So we do have a full ET program and full AI program now. And our target is to sell bulls here locally to our commercial cattlemen. Our environment is high desert, it's arid, and the bulls really got to be able to get out and move. And we're fortunate to have a loyal customer base from 30 years ago that a lot of times I'm able just to deliver those bulls, and as long as everybody stays sound and bred up good, why we don't have any issues. But we sell bulls here locally, private treaty. We also go to some consignment sales. We try to stay with the performance-oriented tests to where we can measure something as far as gain and carcass genetics, and then also have some competition as opposed to just like a traditional consignment sale. And I think that's really allowed us to see where our cattle rate as far as performance and see what kind of genetics they can hang with. And so we go to 2 of those in Montana, one being the granddaddy of them all. And we've had some success there. And then we have another one that we go to in Nevada. So that's kind of our market stream. Our clientele kind of ranges anywhere from guys in their operations in California, Oregon, Nevada, Idaho, Montana. We have sent cattle outside of that radius, and even sent some cattle overseas. So I don't know. It's been a really enjoyable operation to be a part of. It's always interesting to see what's new and coming down the pipeline, whether it be, genomic data or just management practices that help us produce a better, healthier calf that can go on and really perform to their potential.
Well, that's a great point, because, especially as a veterinarian, if we don't keep them healthy, if we don't keep them, if we don't build the building blocks correctly, doesn't matter the genetic basis, they're never going to be able to perform at that level. Right. So, and I guess selfishly as a veterinarian, I'm in complete agreement that steps that we can take management wise to be able to help with the health help with the development of that immune system, to be able to nurture that along, as well as growing and developing the animal. I almost put them in separate boxes.
Right. Despite all the technology and everything, these old timers, they'd come and tell you, well, as long as that calf's up and going and getting colostrum as a newborn, chances are you're going to be all right. And as long as that calf, as he develops, will stay on feed and water, he's going to be all right. And as long as that cow will, continue to go to feed and water, she's going to be all right. And the reality is, when God created those creatures, he gave them everything they need to kind of do that, as long as our intervention doesn't cause too much stress, or when it does, that we have the ability to help them through some of those times or situations. So it's interesting. I really enjoy it. To me, it's fun. You mentioned I'm third generation. I've got kids that are involved. I've got 3 children that all own a cow and go out with dad as often as they can. And just seeing the changes over my lifetime, it's interesting to see what's coming for them. A lot of people that maybe are removed from the ag sector, they think, well, they're just a bunch of cowpokes, or they just chase silly cows around or do this or that. And it's pretty amazing how much science and data and everything, especially in the seed stock industry, where we're really interested in understanding these cattle and how the genetics work, and trying to, capitalize on the potential that they have. I know one of my customers, he told me, he said, when we started running your guys' bulls, I was able to sell the same weight of steers 2 months prior to when I had historically. And you take 60 days off of a calf in a feedlot, and all that is money in your pocket. And if you can do that at a large scale, I mean, that can really change an operation. So, that's fun. It's fun to get feedback like that. It's humbling, and it's rewarding.
Well, it is rewarding. And I think your point about where you've seen the industry come in your life on the seed stock and the cattle industry, sometimes we lose track about our consumer base and our customers. We're beef producers. We all, you sell and promote genetics, but it's a part of the beef production chain. I have some of these conversations with beef consumers and explain our genetic tests that are available today are quite a bit more reliable than 23andMe, right?
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing about it, is that even with myself, I have to remind my own family at times, like, yeah, these are registered cattle, and we care about them from a genetic standpoint. But at the end of the day, they wind up as beef, just like every critter that we sell a bull to create. In those commercial outfits, it's still about beef. And so I think being able to utilize some of the technology and stuff, whether it be ultrasound or genomic testing, and getting a feel for what that calf's potential is from a marbling standpoint, from a yield standpoint, all of that kind of feeds down to the food chain, right? So that's it's nice when we find customers who really get it, that it starts at day one at my place and it ends the day that carcass is hanging and cut, and then eventually sold to a consumer.
Hey, it's a great day to be a beef consumer. They're kind of reaping the benefits of a lot of these different things that almost happen, behind the scenes that they may not be aware of, and that's okay. But it's cool from our perspective to be able to look at it and be like, wow, we're really making some strides. And I can only imagine what our kids, what type of technologies they're going to be utilizing into the future. It's fun to think about.
Yeah, no, it really is. And it's fun to see them have a passion for it. They might not be as crazy about it as I am, but I give them about 10 or 15 years and they'll probably figure out their own way to stay involved. But
so Kevin, what, are there some specific things that have helped you on the production side to be able to help with health of those animals, productivity of those animals? Because you're growing and developing your own bulls and sale animals, right? I mean, other than the ones that go to the bull tests, you're still taking them from day one through Is there anything specific that's helped you out?
Yeah, the one product that we've implemented is Cattle Active, and that product is something that kind of I had heard about it and had been hesitant to change. I suppose that I had some of that old timer quality that I'm doing it the way that I had been doing it, and I kind of did it the way that Dad did it, and I kind of did it the way Granddad did it. But there was actually two commercial producers, particularly in our area, that had been using the Cattle Active product, and I had been using a competitor, but maybe had not plateaued with results, and my uncle had an issue, had some scours in his calf crop here. It's probably been 3 or 4 years ago now. And here in Idaho, we have a tendency in February and March to get wet. The wind blows constantly. And yet the thing is those nighttime temperatures can get down to 0 and you might be 40 or 50 by that afternoon. So there's a lot of fluctuation there that causes kind of a perfect recipe for scours if we have mud. And so anyway, they had dealt with some of that, and I had, let's jump ahead to this last spring, I was dealing with a little bit of it, and I decided to go ahead and bite the bullet and try Cattle Active. I decided that if I was going to use a product like that, I wanted to kind of go wholesale into it. I didn't want to just dabble because I wanted to see if it would really do what I had been told it would do, how it would help my performance in my calf crop, how it would kind of keep my cows where I wanted them to be from a productivity standpoint, from a fertility standpoint. And so we started using that as an additive, I guess, to our protocol. And the biggest thing I think we saw in those calves is they were responding kind of on the first treatment, and we weren't having to retreat those calves. It seemed like recovery increased maybe as much as 48 hours. A calf that typically took us about 72 hours to turn around, we were turning them around in 24 to 36 hours. So I just kind of felt like that in itself was worth the change. And it just seemed the quicker we could get that calf recovered and back on mom, we weren't giving up lost pounds. And, all of us, we try to make every day a good day for those calves. So that was really important. And anyway, so I switched over. We started using that product this spring. And I don't know if, we used it in the calves, and then we started using the tubs. And so trying to implement it at every phase, I guess.
So it kind of started, your motivation, there was a problem. You wanted to try, obviously if there's a problem, something's not working quite right. Back to, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, you started to have a little bit of breakdown in the system, and you're looking to very willing to try something for, can something help this issue? And so it just kind of, hey, through the word of mouth, you're able to hear about some of this particular product. So is this a drench? Is this something you put in the water? Is this an injectable? What is this product?
So, yeah, AJ, so it is a drench, and it can be utilized in many ways. The whole basis of it is to improve gut health in those animals and balance that pH, doing everything that we can to keep the pH level above 5.8 and kind of in that sweet spot of 6.2 to 6.8, I believe it is. And so they have options on these calves. You just drench them with a syringe in a liquid form. And then they also have a tub. You can feed tubs to the cattle kind of year round, depending on your management and their nutrition and requirements as far as how those cattle are doing. And then they also have a feed through pellet that we actually just started using in the feedlot on some cattle that we're getting ready to send send to a commercial yard. And so I've actually, in this last year, I've utilized all three of those. We haven't treated any water, but I probably will implement that here over the next couple of weeks as I get some bulls ready to send to Montana, just to make sure that they're running on all cylinders and ready for the transition, the haul, the change of environment, the change of feed, all of those things. So I guess to kind of run through our protocol, if you want me to jump to that.
Yeah, so I guess that was going to be my next question is, I guess, a little bit about your management, because it's, you mentioned scours. And if you're calving in February, do you have them in a relatively confined paddock? Are you calving, out on range? And then I guess the answer to that is, is this a proactive piece of your protocol that you're giving to every animal, or something that you're doing if an animal has issues for the calf? We can start there.
Sure. So our calving window, we typically start calving the latter part of January on our embryo transfer calves and our AI calves. And we do run on farm residues. Typically we're out on corn stalks and any other kind of farm residue that I can get access to. If the weather cooperates, we will calve those cows outside. However, we are set up with not a complete enclosed facility, but definitely we call it our calving barn. It's open on one side to the south, and it has separate pens and whatnot that we can calve in. And the goal there is get the calf, keep the mom and calf dry and out of the wind for the first 12 to 24 hours. As soon as that calf's had his colostrum, he's hooked on good, they go out to a transitional corral. And, by day 3, they're back out in the field with the rest of the cow herd. That is helped us a lot, and it probably has hindered us at times when we do start to get, if it gets overcrowded or we get wet and moisture and we're not able to keep those calves flowing through that system as well as we would like. So that's kind of the scenario that we have. And so to answer your question, this past year when we implemented it, we were using it to treat a problem that had already occurred. Moving forward, we used it as a preventative. So on day 1, those calves, after they had their colostrum, when we give them their other shots at birth and tag them and weigh them and whatnot, we'd give them a shot of cattle active too.
Or a drench.
Yeah. Excuse me, not a shot, but yes, a drench of the cattle active.
Okay. So that'd be for calves. You mentioned you started using tubs, I assume for the cows, and then also kind of in your growing and development phase with some of your pellets.
So as we went, after calving and everything, I exposed those cows to tubs while they were on corn stalks. Also started them on I think it's the 20% tub. They had access to that. And then just trying to keep those cows in condition. We do feed long stem hay out on the ground in those stalks because it's actually silage stalks. It's not thrash stalks. So there's not a lot of roughage. Once they kind of clean things up, it's more just to have the ground to get them spread out and give ourselves a little more room for those calves. So we do feed on the ground, both barley straw and alfalfa, and the alfalfa has some grass in it, along with our tubs. But at breeding time, those calves would have received it. I call it breeding. It's kind of turnout time too, while you have those cows in the corral for the 3 days that we're AIing or putting embryos in. Those calves would have received another drench. That would kind of be your branding drench, if you will. And then the cows, I also drench the cows at the time of implant on our cedar protocol, and to help drive that rumen down. And I guess maybe this is where I it was suggested I do it again at the time of AI service. I did not do that this year, but that's mostly a labor issue, which you got to try to balance things out, right? So
you're not alone. You're not alone on the labor side. I think that's a continual theme with a lot of operators. But but I see what you're getting at is times of anytime you bring them in and you're going to get them in a closer confinement for, hey, you're branding, whether it's a branding pen or you're getting them together for breeding and putting in ET, doing your, anytime you get them together in a closer quarters is kind of where you're focusing your efforts.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, because of our management and having to get those cows into AI and whatnot, I mean, it just creates higher densities, higher stress. We're separating calves from cows for time periods. So yeah, we tried to drench both mama and baby at that time. And then once we got everything bred and turned out, we turn out to grass. And then at that point, I switched over to a garlic tub. Cattle Active makes a tub that has garlic as one of the ingredients. I think it's still a 20% protein tub that's got garlic in it. And that's in order to help with our fly situation. Southern Idaho is home to a large population of dairy cows and an enormous amount of corn acres. And it seems like if we are proactive in our fly treatment, whether it be through a feed through product that's a mineral or a lick tub, we have a lot better success controlling those flies on our cow herd. And so we started feeding that tub, transition to the garlic tubs probably around the 1st of June. The flies don't really get too bad till I would say the 15th of July, then in kind of till it freezes, or they start chopping corn. So,
well, you're lucky. If I'm, here in Kansas, we started looking at fly season, and far southeast Kansas, it's beginning of like second week of March is almost when flies begin. The rest of Kansas, we're really, it's April 1st is almost when that begins, which is, so when you say June, I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah. Well, I know that if you're not proactive with it, you'll get behind and you'll have a fly population problem. Just with our environment, there's always water because of all the irrigation and stuff. There's always good source of water. Plus we've got, like I said, all the other hosts here locally.
Okay, so talk about the calves, talk about the cows, kind of what you're doing when heading back out, into a range scenario post-breeding. And then you also mentioned in the bunk with some of your development and growing critters.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, once those cattle are turned out, they have access to those tubs. As we near weaning, what we did is we gave our first round of shots. We did not give Cattle Active at that time. We could have given Cattle Active at that time, but they had access to tubs basically all summer. You kick them back out, they still have access to those tubs. When we did wean and give our second round of shots, we drenched the calves again with Cattle Active. And then we also utilized their stress tub, which is kind of their weaning tub. And I think it's a little lower in protein, but a tub that's designed to help them transition to feed. And so we provided them with that. We did just wean on long stem grass hay. And after those calves quit balling and kind of settled in, I would say day 3 or 4, we started feeding a little bit of alfalfa with it. The nice thing that I see with the tub situation and the Cattle Active deal is at that point in that calf's life, he's had that exposure. Their gut is used to it, and the transition coming off of mom just seems a little easier. They're familiar with that tub. If they don't feel like going to eat, they'll still go to the tub and lick, and that's going to promote appetite. And the next thing you know, that calf's over at the free choice feeder or up at the bunk and taking care of itself the way that we need it to. And hopefully they don't go backward as far as calves that don't have any familiarity with the product or anything in that pen that they're not familiar with. And I would say that's kind of a change since I came home, kind of a change over the last 15 to 20 years of how we've weaned. Kind of going back to how Dad did it or Granddad did it. I think we've learned a lot over the years about the easier transition we can make in those cattle, the better off they are long term.
I think you're spot on. I mean, just the familiarity of what they're used to. You know, you mentioned you roll out hay, they're well versed whenever that hay wagon comes by, or you're rolling them out with a tractor or pickup, however you're doing it. They're used to seeing that hay. The tub, same way. They've been exposed to that tub. They've seen mom lick in it. It works out perfect in your scenario. They understand it. It's comfortable. It's nothing brand new, that they're kind of familiar with that environment. And we can say the same thing for the environment. I mean, if calves, we've got some cool studies that show that if they have exposure to the weaning area, it's less stress. So it's, kind of like people, we get pretty comfortable with, similar things around us. The change sometimes disrupts. Cattle, it's even more exponential.
So, and then I guess on the pellet product, that's just something that we started using since weaning. So over the last month or so, and I'm utilizing it basically just to make sure that it's there in the bunk and those cattle are just staying active on it. As I mentioned, I do send those cattle to different yards to fully develop them once we get them bunk broken. I would say backgrounded a little bit. Some bulls will go to Montana, heifers and private treaty bulls go to another yard to be developed. So it's just me and one hired man kind of on the daily crew and just keeping the cow herd going. And then we also have a fall calving cow herd. So our focus kind of shifts. And when I can get rid of these weaned calves and send them off to grow out, why I can focus on these fall cows and getting them rebred and utilizing the same type of protocols in them and get ready for winter, because calving season January will be here before we know it.
It does sneak up on us, so pre-planning is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, you mentioned that this is a product that you moved to help with a scenario. But are you seeing benefits? I mean, where are you at?
I am. I ran through some of the weaning weights and stuff, and I don't know what percentage, but we did wean heavier bull calves. So I think there's definitely a huge benefit as far as gut health and calf health and transition and whatnot, which obviously is going to lead to heavier weaning weights on those cattle. Anytime we can keep them sound and keep growing and keep that gut healthy, they're going to grow a lot better. The biggest thing for us is based on our preg check, and obviously it's, statistics can be a little changed a little bit, but it looks like to me that we probably are going to see at least a 10%. My numbers tell me a 13% increase in conception rate on the first cycle on our cow herd. And, you think about that and the dollars invested in an AI and embryo transfer program, and that 13% can be huge for us. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen to this point. The 8 to 10 pounds of gain and difference on the calf crop at weaning time maybe wasn't as large as I would have hoped, but I also know that I took pretty good care of my cows before switching to this product. And I do know that I've only got room to gain there. I think as these cattle kind of are on the program and are just have more exposure to it, I think we'll see a little better gain there. But the conception rate on the cow herd is really what I'm excited about, because you never know. I mean, that 13%, one of those calves could be a next herd sire or a donor cow or something like that really helps change and drive our program forward. So,
well, for all cattle operations, if we have better success with first cycle pregnancies, those calves that are born, they're older, right? They're 30, they may be 30 days plus older by the time that it gets up to weaning. That instead of, if you've got, we've got operations that are 90-day breeding window, boy, if they're way up front, they may be a couple months older than some of those other calves. I mean, that is pounds on the hoof.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly right. And, the thing that's interesting to me about it is, we dropped our open or cold rate dropped 2% from year over. And we had, basically 85% of the cow herd was bred in the first cycle, AI or ET, and then the next 21 days with the cleanup bull. So we got 85% bred in that first, they're going to all calve in the first 28 days, we'll call it. So I'm pretty excited about that. Even I guess what I'm getting at is it wasn't just the cows that stuck AI and ET, but those cows that caught first cycle after the bull or with the bull, we saw an increase there too. So if I can calve 85% of the cow herd in the first 28 days of the calving window, I'm really, really satisfied with that.
So obviously that all turns into profitability for any operation, whether you're purebred like yourself, commercial. We get cows pregnant. We get them pregnant early in the season, wean heavier calves. I mean, whether you're selling them for genetics to be able to grow those animals more effectively or just selling as pounds as a wean calf, those days matter, those pounds matter. And that ultimately improves the profitability of an operation, which is pretty important nowadays.
No, I've been really excited about it and just looking forward to kind of see how it continues to work for us. So.
And you're early in the use of it. I mean, relatively, but where you're at today, is this something you recommend?
I think the real interesting part about it, AJ, is that if an operation isn't doing anything like this, obviously there's other products out there, but if you're not doing anything like this, I think the changes that you'll see immediately are really astronomical. I mean, I think exponentially it can make improvements in your cow herd health. And I think I've seen that in the commercial guys that use it close to us. They're not obviously as stringent as I am about when they're using it and how they're using it and all of that. But when they do use it, the change in their cow herd is pretty incredible as far as what they're weaning and how those cows are breeding back and all of those things. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it to anybody that's interested. I guess another benefit to me is I got to see it work in those programs before I committed to it. And so, and it's not just that I got to see it. I know like their genetic base was similar to my genetic base. And so I could kind of see, okay, it's working for them. Then there's probably a high probability that it'll help us out. And then just being able to work with local people, having local people that are involved with it. And, it's nice to have reps that stop by and evaluate the cattle and call and check and see how things are. And it doesn't feel like it's just being pushed by your local store or a big nationwide deal. It just, the service has been good that way too. So I've been really pleased with it to this point.
So, you've got a lot of clientele throughout your local area that you sell bulls to, throughout what you explained, kind of all over the place. Are there any other management tips that, I mean, this is a great platform to be able to share with, but, for all cattle producers, but do you see some things that, boy, I wish more folks would do this management wise? It would really help them out. Just on the management side, what do you see? What would be another, something you would suggest and hope folks start doing more of?
That's kind of a tough question. I'd hate to tell somebody how to run their operation without being kind of intimately educated on it. But I think that, I think that you just have to give, I know from a bottom line standpoint, if you give these cattle the opportunity to express their genetic potential, it's going to put money in your pocket. So I would tell a producer, I guess, don't be afraid to try something new. And, these cattle are worth a lot of money, and we have to do everything we can to take care of them. And if there's products out there like Cattle Active that can help you be more profitable, don't be afraid to say yes and try something new like that.
Well, I tell students that all the time. It's okay to get out of your comfort zone every now and then. You'll be surprised what happens.
Sometimes I had a guy tell me the other day, the biggest risk is sometimes the risk you don't take. And, I think that's true in any sector. If you're always staying in your comfort zone, you're never going to learn anything new, and you're never going to achieve something new. So I think you gotta really kind of push that a little bit. And if it doesn't work, then do something different, but don't be afraid to try.
It's time for our famous three.
No, that's good advice. So we're wrapping up our podcast right now. At the end of the podcast for the Beef Podcast Show, we always come back with the folks that we invite on, and we ask them kind of the same three questions. That's what sets this podcast apart. So for the first one, what's your favorite beef related resource that you utilize as a beef producer?
I'm pretty busy, and with 3 young kids and the ranch to run, I also have a part-time job off the ranch. I utilize podcasts primarily for my information. There's some that come out every day. There's some that come out on a weekly basis. But anything audio that I can listen to keep me abreast of what's going on, both in the seed stock industry and just in the beef market as a whole, I kind of seek my information out there. I do get many of the same publications that I assume most cattle producers get, but I do tend to listen to podcasts and or audio for most of my information.
Well, you're on one of those platforms right now, right?
Right.
Well, okay. So if it's not cattle related, what are you listening to, or what do you read if it's not going to be cattle related?
I read stuff about, I don't know, just business oriented podcasts as well, and enjoy that. And I've enjoyed watching sports and kind of following along on some of those things. I don't know. My time's pretty strapped with my family and everything. So I don't have a lot of extracurricular stuff outside of what we have going on, but yeah.
No, that's fair. So to wrap up the last question, I'm going to tweak this question a little bit, but in your, I guess in your thought process, what makes if you're a cattle producer, what makes you a leader in the industry? Basically, what makes you a really successful standout cattle producer that your neighbors look up to you and say, boy, they're doing something, they're really doing something over there?
An operation that has integrity, I think, is the biggest thing. There's a lot of different folks out there and that you can do business with, whether it be in the cattle industry or whatever, and it might be another operator that has cattle or a business that you're doing, or a company that you're doing business with in the cattle sector. And I just think integrity is one of the things that I certainly seek out. And I think that if it builds a foundation of that cattle business, those producers typically have things together, and I think it lends to hard work. It lends to just keeping an operation going. And I would just say that's really, really important for me in the different places that I've seen. I tend to really appreciate the operations that have some history, are kind of family based. I think that's probably it.
That's spot on, and I agree with you. I think that's really important. Kevin, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been great to have this discussion. I sincerely hope our paths cross again. And to sign off, again, this is the Beat Podcast Show brought to you by Wisenetics. I'm Dr. AJ Tarpoff with the Beat Podcast Show. We had Kevin Thibault. This has been fun. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, it has. I would just like to say thank you for the opportunity and appreciate you guys having me on.